Hello everyone, Bells from Bell's Basement here, and today we're going to be doing something quite special. So several years ago, I uploaded a video on my channel called Radiohead Ranked. And even though it wasn't the first video that I've ever uploaded on my channel, it was still the first music review center video that I've ever made. It was basically what the title implied, a ranking of all of the Radiohead albums. Well, now it's been a while since that video came out, and I wanted to pretty much make an updated ranking. Mostly because the video kinda sucks.
They have made at least 3 records that people consider some of the best of their respective decades.
And so the plan at first was to update my album ranking, but then I thought about doing something crazier. What if I ranked every Radiohead song? Yeah, that's right. I mean, considering that Radiohead is one of the very few bands out there where I know every song to heart, I thought it would be fun to give it a shot. So I'll give it a shot. Here's my 2 imaginary nickels. Sorry, I live in a terrible country. But before we begin, let me set the rules on how this ranking is gonna go. First of all, I'm only going to be ranking the songs from the main studio albums. As many good B-sides a band has, I'm going to avoid talking about them for the sake of keeping this video fairly simple. So yeah, no talk show host, no fuck, no song from In Rainbow's Disc 2, the main studio album songs. And yeah, it's actually the only rule that I'll be keeping in mind. Let's begin. Now, this might be a strange song to put at the bottom of the list, but the more I think about it, I don't think there's a single Radiohead song that feels more worthless and lazy than this one. Also, yeah, as you will soon notice, there are going to be a lot of Pablo Honey songs at the bottom. Yeah, I don't really like the album that much, to be honest. Not only this is probably the most boring Radiohead song, but it gets even worse when you decide to look at the lyrics of it. Like, Tom, listen buddy, I didn't need to know that you were playing with yourself, you fucking creep. Well, this one just sucks. I mean, there's nothing downright outrageous about this one, but still, I don't like the melodies, I don't like Tom's voice in this one, and the last part of the song is just, well, just straight up weird. Like, it just seems like they just added in because, just cause. Not good. Stop whispering, stop shit. I don't really have anything to say about this one, it's just pretty boring. Hey, this one is not from Pablo Honey. So honestly, I don't think there's a single Radiohead song after Pablo Honey that I think is straight up bad. Except for maybe this one. I don't know, I just find the song to be really dull and the most emblematic of the worst qualities of Hell to a Thief. Where there's a somewhat interesting idea here, but it's just dragged out for the entire runtime of the song. Even the jazzy jump scare doesn't really do anything for me. Do you remember what I've said about me remembering every single Radiohead song to heart? Well, that wasn't actually entirely true before listening to Pablo Honey in preparation for this video, because I honestly didn't remember how this song sounded till now. I mean, it's not necessarily a terrible song, but I wouldn't be surprised if I was in a scenario months later where you pointed a gun in my head, you asked me how this song sounds like, and I wouldn't really be able to tell you. And the same thing goes for this song. This one has kind of a catchy melody to it, which puts it above the other ones that I've talked about, but otherwise I don't think there's really anything particularly remarkable about it. I don't really have any problems with this track when it comes to being an interlude in Amnesiac, although it doesn't really have much of a connection to the other songs from the album. But on its own, I mean, why would you ever decide to listen to it? This is another one that I find to be kind of dull, but at the very least it's only 2 minutes long, and hey, Tom has sort of an interesting vocal performance here, so it's not too bad. You know, it's funny, I always remember this being one of the absolute worst Radiohead songs, just mainly on the Beach House live performance, which by the way is a must watch for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's beautiful. But yeah, this song is not that bad honestly. It has some cringe-worthy moments, but at the very least this song has a sense of fun and energy that I wish most of Pablo Honey had just generally. And yeah, it's generally also at the very least not boring to listen to. I actually generally love Amnesiac as a whole. I think it's honestly their most underrated album. But this is the only song that I'm not really that big on. It's not bad, but it feels like a more forgettable retread of the better moments of the album for me. This song is kind of pleasant and serene, but for a song as a whole, I mean, I still feel like it's kind of lacking. Like the 5-minute runtime of the song, I don't think is necessarily necessarily that justified. This one is okay. I like Tom's vocals on it, and the chorus is generally pretty good, even if it gets a little bit overbearing by the end. But still, I never really have a desire to listen to it. This one has kind of the same problem as We Suck John Blood, where it has an interesting idea, but it's just being dragged out for the entire runtime of the song. However, though, I do like this one generally more because I think what the band is doing here is just generally more unique and interesting. This one is also okay. I don't really have much to say about it really. This song very much sounds like a leftover from the Kid A / Amnesiac sessions, and I could even say that it feels underbaked, but I think I still generally like it. It's an alternative rendition of the song from Kid A, but done in a more nightmarish and eerie way, so you know, it's cool. This is only a track that works within the context of the album, but I mean, that's clearly what it's meant to be, and it's a good interlude at that, essentially being a mocking of the cold and sanitary perfectionisms of society. That's done in a way that's haunting. Bulletproof is just a little nice song with some airy qualities to it. It's one of the more forgettable tracks on the bands, but it's still pretty good.
We got to feel it.
That's the only good part of the old video. Kind of the same case as Bulletproof. It's one of the weaker songs, but it's still pretty good. This is the weakest song in Kid A by default in that it's probably the only one worth listening to within the album and not by itself. But still, this is still a very pretty ambient track that does come at the perfect time in the album. Like, I cannot think of a better placement for the song. And the same thing goes for this song actually. It's very pretty, just not one that I will really listen to by itself. Like Feral, this is another song from The King of Limbs that is mostly carried by its groove than anything else. But it has such an infectious groove that it does actually manage to carry the song all together as a result. Also, let it be known that Radiohead wrote a better song called Little by Little than Oasis. Wait, why am I talking about Oasis now? While this is not one of my favorite songs from Hell to the Thief, I do think it's probably one of the catchiest on the album, mainly because of the infectious riff. Still though, the song's repetitive nature does prevent it from charting higher. And yeah, this is another one that will be higher if it wasn't for its repetitive nature. This one actually used to be one of my favorite songs from Hell to the Thief, mainly because I think this is one of the more unique sounding songs. It's kind of an electronic sound that I don't even think it sounds even remotely close to a song from Kid A or Amnesiac. But yeah, it does still feel in a way kind of undercooked. Good song still though. I remember meeting a guy who said that this was the best Radiohead song outside of the big three. I just wanted to let you know. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not one of those people who think Muse, at the very least old Muse, sounds like a band trying to sound like Radiohead. But if there's one Radiohead song that Muse most likely took heavy inspiration from, it will have to be this one. This song I think is a little underrated actually. Some will argue that it feels like either a demo or a song that sounds more like an interlude on the album than anything else, but I don't know. It's so weird and even sort of unsettling in its own unique way that I actually find myself quite liking it. Also, the music video for this song is quite nuts. Oh yeah, did you know that this song had a music video? The more you know. I like this song for several similar reasons as to Desert Island Disc, but this one I think is generally more gorgeous and even more memorable out of the two.
Okay, I sing now.
One of the few things that I really like about the bands that I don't really see people bring up that often is that I appreciate how this was the first Radiohead album where the band sort of regularly embraced their melancholic qualities. And yes, this song is one of them. I used to be really harsh towards this song in the past, like I thought this was the worst Radiohead song that wasn't on Pablo Honey, and I thought it was very boring, but this one has definitely gotten a lot better over the years for me. I mean, I don't think this is one of the best Radiohead songs or anything, but still, it has a certain toned down, dreamy quality to it that really makes it nice to listen to. In Rainbows is such a fantastic album that even the song that sounds more like an interlude is still generally really good. I know a lot of people have said this before, but this is the song from Pablo Honey that sounds the closest to the sound of the later albums, at the very least the closest to a band song. And I mean that as a positive, very haunting song. This one actually grew on me a little bit over the years, not just because I like how Tom sings, but this is generally one of the more interesting songs on the album when it comes to its political melodical lyrics, and I like the acoustic instrumentation to this one as well. In contrast to Blowout, this one does sound very Paulo Honey-esque sounding, but it's actually quite good despite of it. Like, this is definitely the most alive sounding song on the album to me, well, aside from a certain song that I'll be talking about later. The backing vocals for this one never fail to send me chills every time I listen to it. This song was honestly more climatic and ground sounding than I remembered. Little fun fact for this one, this song was actually Radiohead's first collaboration with Nigel Godrich, and I think it's very clear to say that Godrich has been going strong with Radiohead from the very start because this song is really good. Even if the song was made because the label wanted the band to replicate the success of Creep with it. I think the song is really good, but why is the title for it so long and weird? Like, I don't even think a lot of Radiohead fans even properly remember the name because, I mean, just look at it. I used to think that this was the weakest song on OK Computer, but I really grown to appreciate a lot of things about it. Generally on how this is noticeably more open and reflective than most of the album, and as a closer it really does work well because of it. It's sort of a breather in a way. Also, that last ding in the song is a nice touch. I remember seeing a lot of people say that this is one of their favorite songs on Amunche Pool, and yeah, I can see why. It's not only one of the most serene songs on the album, but there's several nice subtle qualities to it as well, particularly the choir. You know, for a song that has the word bell in the title, it's very good. I feel very proudly represented here, thank you Radiohead. One of my favorite things about Kid A has always been its sequencing, and one of my favorite examples of it is this song that follows Optimistic in Kid A. And what's interesting about it is that it's a pretty different song to Optimistic, yet when combined together it actually kind of feels like one big song. Also, yeah, this song rocks. It's very hypnotizing and mystifying, and it has a pretty insane outro to it as well. Great song. Probably the most dreamy-like song that Radiohead has ever made prior to Amunche Pool, and I like that about it. And this is probably the most sailing-like. I think this is probably the most underrated song from the bands, not only having one of the most fun Tom York vocal performances in the album, like honestly this will probably be a fun song to do karaoke on, but it's just generally really good songwriting wise. Like the riffs and melodies on the song just really feel very right and present here. And speaking of underrated, we have the numbers. While there are several Amunche Pool songs that I like more that we will be talking about later, I think this is the song that mainly represents what I like about Amunche Pool. It's a song that's mainly driven by these subtle and gorgeous little melodies that really do make the song just feel very enveloping. Definitely my favorite song from the first half of The King of Limbs, which tends to be a lot more groove centered than, well, the second half. Not only because it contains several of the qualities from songs like Morning Mr. Magpie or Little by Little, but this song takes it a step further and creates these psychedelic and serene soundscapes that, well, surround the song. It's a very good way to open the album. I think one of the best aspects of Hell to a Thief is how it blends the alternative rock elements from the 90s albums with the more electronic sound of the early 2000s records. And this is one of the best examples to me, mainly on how it uses guitars at the beginning to set a mystifying mood, and how the song gets progressively more invaded by its more electronic elements. It's a song that is mainly centered on the build-up, and fortunately it does have a great build-up. I know this probably applies to every song on the album because, well, it's a big part of the concept of the album, but this really does feel like a song that sounds like it's set on a dystopian, futuristic setting. Especially with those wonderful, spacey melodies throughout it all, it's wonderful. Remember what I said about Hell to a Thief being very good when it comes to blending alternative rock and electronic? Yeah, this is another great example. Like seriously, how do you make a guitar riff sound like this? I really wanna know. Probably the best drums and grooves out of the whole album. Probably the most unsettling song in Radiohead's discography. I remember thinking this song was good but pretty overrated back in the day, and I guess in a sense I still somewhat do because I don't really agree at all with this being the best song on Amunche Pool, like a lot of people would like to tell me. But still though, the song has definitely grown on me. I think it's pretty great. Not only I think it's cool that this has the most chilling and different atmosphere out of the whole album, generally feeling more anxious than relaxing, but the build-up is pretty great as well. So I'm not gonna lie, this is a song that actually took a while to grow on me, but once it did, it actually made me realize just how beautiful it is. It's just a great way to end the album. It winds down the more bombastic elements of In Rainbows, and it ends at its most mellow and gentle note. Like, it has a simple but beautiful piano melody, and Tom's vocals are also very pretty on it. And just the way that the instrumentation perfectly matches the imagery that the lyrics paint Paint is also just worth noting. And speaking of great closers, Life in a Glass House is also a pretty great song. Not only is it the band's jazziest song to date, but it's also pulled off in a very satisfying and bombastic manner, like they really went off pretty hard here. This one is kind of hard to put into words, honestly. I mean, my favorite thing about it is the wonderful riff that drives the whole song together. I think it's mainly because of how it's produced, like it gives a certain grand and wide feel to it. It's funny because I didn't really realize how much I like this song till, well, recently. Okay, so this might be my English or that I'm simply weird, but I cannot be the only one who has heard Tom say Pokemon during this part. Maybe it's because the beat of the song is so good and it contrasts perfectly with the vocals, but for the only Radiohead song where Tom is somewhat rapping, they really pull it off in such a great and inventive way. This song is really great and all, and it does have one of the best hooks and even performances from Tom on the album, but the music video... If you haven't seen the music video, you should do that right now. Well, after you finish watching my video, of course. This is another one that it's hard to put into words because I don't really just want to boil it down to, oh, amazing build-up. But it really is an amazing build-up. Like, it's some of the most manic energy that we've ever seen from the band. This one is just really nice. It's arguably the most bright and summery song on the band. And that's honestly what I really love about it. Especially with how warm the guitars sound here. Yeah, from a pop standpoint, I can see why this was one of the only 3 Radiohead songs to ever break it into the Hot 100. The way the song was made during production of the album, I always found interesting because I think it kind of represents the idea that great music sometimes comes from little things. Kind of like a small snowball progressively getting bigger as it gets, and in this case it was a song that started out as a simple acoustic melody that Tom didn't know what to do with it, before it eventually evolved into this emotional song about consumerism. There's for whatever reason a small hate mob for this one, and to this day I still don't get why. While this is a more bombastic song than most of a Moonshade Pool, I do still think this is an amazing way to start the album. Not just because the strings on this song sound absolutely gorgeous, but the way the song is so arranged is honestly kind of mind-blowing. Also, you cannot forget the outro. Out of all of the songs from the album, this is probably melody-wise my favorite. It's really gorgeous throughout, and the production is just so fully enriching and open. People often consider this to be the clear highlight of the King of Limbs, and even though I think the album has one song that I like more, I can very much understand the consensus behind this one. I mean, it has a lot of the infectious grooves of the preceding songs on the album, but this one I think just generally stands out more because I think the songwriting is arguably strong here, and the way that Tom sings in the song just flows extremely well. This one really is just quite amazing. I mean, it's just so pure and gentle in a whole other level that it's honestly kind of hard to describe. So, do you remember what I said about Subterranean, Humpsy Kelly, and feeling like a song that sounds like it's set in a dystopian, futuristic setting? Well, I think that applies to this song as well, but probably even more. Like, it's probably the song that I will associate the most with OK Computer. Very melodic, but also very somber. Like, there's a sense of sadness and emptiness that is expressed really strongly throughout the song. This one is very interesting to me because for an album that's riddled on more negative emotions, Airbag is sort of the most positive note on the album. It's a song about escaping death and the satisfaction that comes from somehow surviving a horrifying incident. But it's also not really entirely a happy song since it speaks about our dependence on technology, an issue that, yeah, clearly is more relevant than ever. Also, just a wonderful riff as well, and the sleigh bells at the start is such a great touch. Many people say that this is the saddest Radiohead song of all time, and even though I think there are a few out there that are more depressing, this one still very much gets me. It just feels like a very existential song, like the piano melody is slow, fairly simple, and very toned down, and I don't think there's a single Radiohead song where Tom sounds more fragile than he does in here. The way he sings here just feels very haunting and desperate. Also, little fun fact for anyone unaware, this is actually a song that was originally written all the way back in 1995, but it wasn't actually officially released till 21 years later, which is pretty crazy. I don't know how can anyone not love this heavy and fuzzy distorted riff. You know, Now, I was talking about Life in a Glass House being the most jazzy song in the band's discography, but I completely forgot about this one. Yeah, this is probably the most jazzy song that the band has ever made, maybe even the most chaotic. There are generally very few Radiohead moments that are as chilling as this part of the song where the drums kick in. This is honestly one of the most unique Radiohead songs out there. Even when I first listened to Amnesiac, this one really caught my attention from the very start. Not only the hollow percussion and the drony vocals from Tom create such a cold and empty-like atmosphere to the track, but it's a great way to start the album as well. Like, it does perfectly envelop you into the kind of sound that the album presents to you. There are some Radiohead songs out there that are so effortlessly great that they're kind of hard to talk about, and I think that very much applies to 15 Step. It surprises you at the start with some very punchy, kind of glitchy drums, but then they somehow perfectly lead into this great guitar melody with some very warm texture surrounding it, and the whole song just comes together really well. Like, it feels like a Radiohead song that isn't even trying to be one of the big songs on the album, let alone the discography. It's simply the talent and the execution that just pushes through fantastically here. Ah yes, Creep. I think it's very understandable to say that this one is hard to talk about without the context surrounding it. And I don't even think I should even explain it because you probably heard it several times if you're familiar with this band. All I'm gonna say is, it's honestly a really great song. Re-listening to every album from this band in preparation for this video has kind of reaffirmed that I just simply don't really like Pablo Honey, even if I try to look at it as its own thing. But Creep is honestly a classic. It's not hard to see why the band were one-hit wonders during a time when their debut was the only album they've ever released, because it is easily the best song from the debut. I remember listening to the bands for the first time and being immediately mind blown by this opening track. Like, I don't think there's really any song from the bands or even any Radiohead song in general that sounds as dispersed and filled with this sense of wonder as much as this one. It's riddled with so many spacey and atmospheric guitars that it almost feels like waking up in an entirely different world to me. It's quite magical. This is one of the very few Radiohead songs, hell, songs in general, that makes me feel this existential. Like, seriously, play this song at 3 in the morning, laying in your bed, and then stare at the ceiling. Well, I don't think it's the saddest song from the album. Daydreaming, I think it's the one with the strongest sense of emptiness surrounding it. If there's a word that I will describe Daydreaming, it will be reflective. It's a song that's not only centered on its atmosphere, the little details, and the subtle melodies, but there's also something so deeply haunting on how passive and restrained it sounds. I could just simply summarize Daydreaming as a gorgeous song, but gorgeous wouldn't even be close to describing how beautiful it is. My personal favorite song from The King of Limbs. I love the serene soundscapes, I love Tom's atmospheric vocals, I love the drum pattern that actually does blend really well with the rest, and the melodies I think are just beautiful. Definitely one of the best songs from Amnesiac and probably the most emblematic song of what I love about the album. It has an atmosphere that is coarse and muted and a vocal performance that is sort of ghostly and hypnotic, but it also has a very groovy riff with a particularly crude sound to it, and everything together creates a song that feels very out of this world to me, despite its minimalistic and simple nature. I'm gonna be honest, the more I think about it, the more I think this is probably a personal contender for the saddest Radiohead song. And I think it's mainly that not only I think the song is very sad, but it's really sad in a particularly familiar way. Like, it's a feeling that really just hits close to home for me. Sometimes I just want to live in a perfectly calm day with no constant noise or distraction or any bad surprise, not having to worry or stress myself about anything that I probably even forgot I had to worry about. Just spend a day in a more comfortable place. This one is really beautiful. Not only has one of my favorite bass melodies and crescendos of any song if I'm being honest, but I just adore the soundscape of the song. It's very somber but also very melancholic. When I think of OK Computer, this is probably the song that comes to mind the most. It's just an absolute classic in every way. A majority of the album can be described as melancholic sad, but I think this is especially the case. Not only because of the piano, but the songwriting is just phenomenal as well. Especially when the song gets to the I Lost Myself part, which never fails to give me chills. And this song is another contender for the saddest Radiohead song, although for different reasons. I mean, really, just listen to it. It's not only a deeply haunting song with how the song has nothing within it other than some really sad organs and chilling vocals, but it's just the perfect way to end an album as unconventional as Kid A. I can't even describe it properly why, it just simply is. This one is definitely a classic as well. I think I and many other people will describe the sound of Kid A as post-apocalyptic and alien-like, and Idiotic is the song that really rhymes with that concept the most. Really unconventional drums, a misdefined and weird synth melody, and a prediction to Blue Sky's Ice Age. Yes, everyone has already made a joke about it, so I don't know, I'll just post you this Reddit comment instead. But yeah, this song is just fantastic. Pyramid Song is undoubtedly Amnesiac's crowning achievement. It has one of the most remarkable compositions from the band, it has a phenomenal soundscape, it has a strong build-up, the piano is just downright ethereal. It's one of those songs that manages to be both soothing but also eerie at the same time. And speaking of album crowning achievements, this is another song that I hold in a very high regard. I mentioned before that Hell to a Thief has some songs with really good ideas that feel like they're being kind of dragged out and repeated too much. But there really does feel like a song that reaches its fullest potential. It's just straight up adventurous and grandiose. I especially love the drums across it. And the climax is just so good as well. You should also watch the music video if you haven't already, it's really great. One of the best album openers of all time. From the very first 5 seconds of the song to the very end, this song is everything that I think represents Kid A as an album. Chilling, unsettling, and just downright strange, but also beautiful at the same time. This was the first Radiohead album that I've actually ever heard, and hearing this song back then when almost all of the music that I was listening to was very 90s and 2000s rock music, the song particularly was just new to me. It really was unlike anything else that I've heard before, and even today, yeah sure, I've heard music that sounds more strange than this, but this song still to this very day has never lost any of its magic. Street Spirit is my absolute favorite closer that the band has ever made, and perhaps it's probably the band's darkest song as well. It's a song that represents, well, the end. It represents death, it represents the loss of hope, the inescapable, about being unable to come out on the brighter side of things, and that feeling is really represented perfectly throughout the music. Even if you never read upon the imagery that the lyrics paint in the song is still surrounded by this sense of emptiness and despair. Through not only its persistent melody, but also the haunting vocals and the open but also hollow atmosphere. It's honestly just a quite powerful song. I love this song so much. Reckoner is a particularly very special song. It's a song that strikes such a singular, powerful emotion within me and moves me in a way that I cannot even properly describe. Every melody of this song, every part, every arrangement is done with such finesse, with a sense of beauty and elegance, and when it comes to vocals, this song has maybe my favorite vocal performance from Tom out of any Radiohead song. Like, his voice here is just so pure, so ethereal, so indescribably magical. And it's crazy because from the way that I'm describing it, it sounds like this should be number 1, but there are still somehow 3 Radiohead songs that I like even more. Yeah, I really do love this band. Weird Fishes, I don't even know where to begin with this one. The driving drums, the mesmerizing guitars, the colorful, dynamic and crisp production, the emotional chords that the song radiates upon me, especially through the second half. Weird Fishes is just an unbelievable song in every front, and what I will describe as a melancholic but also melodic odyssey. Everything about it is just so magical and so human. Just little moments like when the drums kick in towards the middle of the song are genuinely just fantastic and unforgettable. It's a roller coaster of emotions that still sounds just as fresh as when I first heard it several years ago. Paranoid Android is probably the Radiohead song that's personally to me the most important, not only when it comes to getting into Radiohead, but also getting into music in general. I've heard Creep, No Surprises, and even the entirety of Kid A before, an album that at the time I actually didn't know how to feel about it. But Paranoid Android is the point where I began to become obsessed with them. And yeah, that's mainly because the song is a masterpiece. Even though this and Weird Fishes are very different when it comes to instrumentation and sound, Paranoid Android is another song that I will describe as a musical odyssey, and one of the very few songs out there where I really felt like I was introduced into a whole new world of music. And I actually always found it a little bit hard to describe why I love the song a lot, but there was always something so special and so engaging about the way the song sounded and was structured generally. The production is top notch here, especially with the main chorus, and there's still a lot of moments here that I get a lot of chills from, like the "Why don't you remember my name" part or the ending. It's a very forward-thinking song, and a song that really just feels inventive in all fronts. It feels very futuristic, and that's not just because of the themes of the song, but just the techniques and the effects that it's used on the instrumentation and the sound and everything. It definitely feels like a step forward into the future, and to this day it still feels very fresh. The song is widely considered to be their most acclaimed song of all time, and I think it very much deserves it. There is still one song that I like more than this one, but if there's one Radiohead song that represents the whole band, it will have to be Paranoid Android. However, Jigsaw Falling Into Place is not only my favorite Radiohead song, but it's also a strong contender for my favorite song of all time. Either this or these other two songs that I might talk about in the future at some point. But for now, let's talk about Jigsaw. Jigsaw is the Radiohead song at its most. It's a song where the talent of the band is put at the absolute limit, and the song where everything together comes down to its most satisfying note. So much about what I love about the band is present here, when it comes to percussion, when it comes to Tom's delivery on both the softer parts and during the last leg of the song. The climax of the song is fantastic for both the song and the album as well, and the build up to the climax is also excellent, managing to feel both natural but also exciting. Jigsaw as a song, both on an instrumental level and on a lyrical level, represents the moment. The moment when you find or spend time with the one who's finally right to you and you want to make it work. But the underlying sadness of it all is that the reality outside of this moment will probably tell you otherwise. Maybe you were in a doomed relationship and you never noticed. This is to me the band's magnum opus. Even taking the lyrics aside, everything the song does on an instrumental level is unlike anything else. Even when it comes to songs that are centered on a build-up, it's a song where, ironically enough, the jigsaw does fall into place, where everything comes down to its most satisfying resolution. And that was the list. As you may have noticed with how extremely positive I have been with a lot of these songs, this is a video that I've been planning to make, not just to make, well, a better Radiohead video than this one, but also as a celebration for what this band means to me. And yeah, Radiohead, even to this very day, still remains to be my favorite band of all time. Sort of a basic choice, I know, but it is what it is, and it's not just because the band has released so much good music. But in a more personal note, Radiohead was a band that truly got me interested into music. Like, I was already listening to other bands beforehand, but this is the band that struck a special chord with me, because it was the moment when I realized that music can be so much more. And by the way, if you're curious to see what my ranking of the albums will be, it is still somehow the exact same as 4 years ago, but I'll still leave it here in case you don't know what my ranking looks like. Well, I don't really have anything else to say. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Bell Spaceman video.